This is called the 180 rule. And this is to save. Have you ever been watching a movie and like it's just a normal scene between a couple of people, you know, talking back and forth, and like something about the scene just seems off to you. Like you can't put your finger on it, but it just feels weird. Like every time it cut to the other person or something, like it's just something, like it's not the dialogue, it's not the story, you're following the story fine. There's just something visually that's just weird to you. A lot of times it's because the director is breaking something called the 180 rule. Okay? In a scene, what the director is gonna do is he's gonna break down this script, right? He's gonna say, okay, these are the scenes that I have, and these are how I want to shoot them. I have a scene between two characters, and he'll plan it out and say, I'm in the scene, let's say it's at a table, right? So we're at a table, character A is talking to character B. Okay. He's going to say, what I'm going to want to do in the editing room is I'm going to want to have a shot where A, we're kind of over his shoulder and looking at character B. You know? So he's going to say, okay, well, in order to do that, I need to put a camera right here. This camera is going to catch the shoulder of A. See? It's going to catch the shoulder of A, and it's going to catch B in his corner. Right? So then he's going to say, and that's going to be shot 1. And he's going to say, but I also want to have the reverse angle, right? Now, I'm going to draw a line between A and B. This is the 180 line. Okay? If he's on this side of the line with the camera, he should never jump the camera to that side of the line, unless he uses a special trick, which I probably don't have time to get into. But there are a couple of tricks that you can use to get across the line, and it won't bother your audience as much. But for the most part, if he crosses this line, it's going to feel really awkward to the audience, and I'll show you why. If he films this shot, if he films this the way he should, he's going to have that be shot 2. Okay? And shot 2, then we'll have character, character B will be there, and character A will be here. Okay? That's if he shoots it properly. If he decides to jump the line and shoot over here, it'll look like this. So what's the difference? Right, they switch sides of the screen. That's what's weird. Because remember, like when you're watching a movie, you're not going to be watching it like this. When they cut from this scene to this one, it's going to, in the blink of an eye, be transposed over the other one. It is going to simply appear, right? And you were looking right here at person B's eyes and their mouth as they talked, okay? And then the scene switched, and if they did it improperly, now, whose eyes and mouth are you looking at? A. And that is what makes you feel weird when you're watching it. Because you just watched a person turn into someone else. And they expected your mind to handle that without a problem. But it doesn't. It feels weird. And in fact, it feels weird enough that some directors will do it on purpose to unsettle their audience. Like, if the thing that's being revealed by character A is especially unsettling, like revealing a deep, dark secret, they might jump the line just to make you feel even more uncomfortable about it.
I saw this funny internet episode about the 180-degree rule, and these two guys, it seemed they were shouting at each other, but they broke the rules, so it turned out they were shouting at someone else.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is like it breaks the geography of a scene. Here's, let me see if I can remember how to do this. This scene, we're going to have angry guy number 1. Angry guy. So we're going to have character A, character B. So here's our 180 degree line. Character B is facing this way, character A is facing this way. Okay, they're not even looking at each other. If you film this one from this side in profile, and then film this one from this side in profile, we'll see. This is, so scene 2 will have person B in profile, looking this way, and scene A, we got this person looking this way too. And so from your audience's perspective, it looks like they're looking in the same direction, but they're not. Like, in order to do that, you really need to have like a nice wide shot that shows both of them so that the audience can orient themselves in the scene and realize that they're not facing the same direction. Because if you don't, like, and that's one of the ways that, like, you can jump across the line here, as long as you do this. As long as, because you need to think about what your audience knows. Because they only know what you're showing them, okay? So this is actually, like, something that you can do intentionally as a gag. You know, like you said, like that funny internet video, like, you know, they're yelling, like people are yelling instead of smiling. You know, it can look like they're ganging up on somebody, but then you look and they're not even looking at each other. One of my favorite gags, one of my friends directed, was it's a couple, and they just had a date that kind of went awry, but it was kind of like comically endearing, so she still likes him. And he filmed it right here, so that he's catching a 2-shot of them, like, next to each other. Okay? And then he comes over here so that he can get the opposite 2-shot of them. So here we've got the one. Okay? Now, he jumps across, and they have a romantic embrace. And there's kind of like this funny third character in the movie. And to make the gag, he jumps the line so that when these two stop kissing and separate their heads, we see that there's been this other character standing there the entire time. So he crosses the line, but it's a good use of it because it ends up being a gag. That because he's the one that like set them up. So like they separate and he's just like, yeah, I did that. So that line rule, it just takes practice. Like you need to chart out your scenes like this and imagine what it's going to look like when you film it. Okay, like this is, you know, some storyboarding like here. You know, storyboard your scenes and what they're going to look like so that you can plan ahead for that. And you know what, you're going to make mistakes. It's okay. Like it takes practice. Sometimes I think directors are often more critical of their stuff than they should be because it takes a lot of, like you guys can see, like all the work that we're going through for you guys to put together. How long are the videos going to be that they're making?
3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be a 3 to 5 minute video. Like that's so short. You know, and how much work is going into it. So it's really easy to like get to the end of it, and I've done it too, and just feel like man, that looks terrible. That didn't look at all the way that I wanted it to. I thought I had planned that out better. I thought that I had talked to that actor and gotten the performance that I wanted out of them. And you can get so down on yourself because of the amount of effort it takes to get one example of your work, okay? And I don't want you to do that. Because, like growing up, I used to draw a lot. And like with a drawing, I know you can't tell I used to draw, but with a drawing, like you mess it up and, you know, like I spent 5–10 minutes on it. You know, like crumple it up, throw it away, try again. No big deal. And because of that, like you're able to get a lot of practice and all by yourself, because like drawing is a solitary thing. Like I don't have to show it to my friends, you know. And so like you can struggle in silence and perfect your craft over the course of time. And you don't have to worry about anybody looking at it and seeing that mistake. And you can easily move on from a mistake because you can just like wipe that slate clean really easy and move on. Filmmaking is different because filmmaking is collaborative. You can't make a movie by yourself. Well, you can, but they're terrible. You really need more than one person. And so when you make a movie, like especially as the director, and it doesn't turn out, it's not like a drawing where you can just like rip off the sheet, throw it away, and start a new one right away. Because it takes time. Like you probably spent hours and hours and hours on that. And you know what? You probably have a lot of people who have seen you fail, have seen the mistakes that you made. You know, and like that doesn't happen with a drawing. Like I can, unless I'm proud of that drawing, I don't have to show it to anybody. But if I'm a director and I had 3 people helping me make this movie and 4 actors helping me make this movie, and like we filmed it at my friend's mom's house, like guess what? They're probably gonna want to see it, and like they're gonna see that you failed. So like I want to encourage you guys to not get discouraged at that, to try and think of those sorts of failures as just one sheet of paper. You know, filmmaking is just an art form where the sheets of paper take longer to go through. They're more expensive, and everybody gets to see them. But don't be your own worst critic. You don't need to be. The fact that you're trying something like this is like, the fact that you get anything is a success. Like one of the things that one of my professors said my first semester, and I guess this is kind of what I'll leave you on. One of my professors, we get done with our first semester projects, and I've literally like never owned a camera before, so it's like the first thing I've ever directed. And it's a little silent movie about a guy who loses his wedding ring down the kitchen sink. And there were requirements. We had to use certain camera tricks in the course of the movie, so that kind of dictated what some of the plot of the movie was. But he basically tries to fish it out. And as he tries fishing it out of the drain, he keeps on pulling up other things. Like at first it's just like hair, and like, but then it's like a lunchbox, and a sandwich, like, and a boot, and a sword. And he keeps pulling things out, and it's driving him crazy because like all he can think about is this wedding ring. He needs to get this wedding ring before his wife gets home. And his wife drives up, and just at that moment, she comes in the door, and she yells out, "Honey, I'm home." It's silent, so you can't hear it, but you can see it. And he's just like, "Oh, great." And he realizes, "Oh, I put my wedding ring in my pocket." And so he like comes out to his wife, and he's so excited, and you can see it on his face. He's like, and the acting is so cheesy because it's my brother. And I'm like, oh no, there's nothing so bad. And it's my wife who's playing his wife, and it's like, and she gets upset at him. She like freaks out on him, and he's just like, oh gosh, why is she so mad at me? Like, you know, I found my wedding ring. But then he comes back in the kitchen and you see that the kitchen floor is littered with all the stuff that he's pulled out of the drain and that the kitchen is just a mess, and that's why she's mad. Right? And I thought like, oh, it's kind of a fun story, it's kind of cute. But like, the lighting was too dark, you couldn't see some of the gag. Like you could never tell that he was using fishing line because it was too fine. Like I wasn't happy, like I should have actually tried to cast the part instead of just getting my brother to play it. And I was just really unhappy with it. And we have to screen these in front of our teacher. And like all these people that we've just met, and we're all trying to impress each other with our film acumen, and like, you know, we want everybody to think that we're the awesomest filmmaker in film school. And like we're screening these and I'm just like, oh. And sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. And my teacher said, I don't want you guys to be discouraged because I know some of you aren't happy with the films today. But I want to remind you that of a conversation that you have probably heard a bunch of times. And you've probably had this conversation with a bunch of people. You and a couple of friends are hanging out. And one of your friends is like, you know, if I ever made a movie, it would have this in it. Or if I made that movie, I would have made it different. I would have done it like this. Or something funny happens, like, oh man, we should put that in a movie someday. At the end of this, you don't ever have to say, if I ever make a movie again. Because you will have made one. You'll have done something that most people only talk about doing. So don't be discouraged because you did something that most people don't do. And it didn't turn out exactly the way that you wanted it to. Take pride in the fact that you guys are putting yourself out there in a way that most people don't put themselves out there. And you're trying to do something that most people don't try to do. You know, it's admirable, it's brave, and even if you never make another movie again, it's something that you should never be ashamed of, you should be